Can you guys see? Anybody can't see? Okay. So this is what it will look like the first time that you go to the university calendar. So it's accessible from the main, so this is the University of Colorado. If you're at the main page and you go to Life and you go to Events, Life at CU Denver is one of the main navigations, and you go to Events. That'll knock you immediately to where we were just at. Oh, and now it's going slow, which is weird. Let's just go back. So here we are. The very first time you come in, you're going to need to log in, which is going to be right here at the top of the navigation. So once you click login, this is the most confusing part of using the whole system, and I do this every time. You start logging in here, and it's not going to know you. You log in with your CU Denver credentials, and you're all set. So as soon as you click login with your CU Denver credentials, everything's going to look very much like you know how it looks. When you log into things, it'll do the Duo authentication and that whole process. And then you will have access to the system. So then afterwards, when you come to the calendar, it will look like this. Rather than sign in, it'll have a submit your event here, and it'll have access to a dashboard, which will show you your events and things like that. So basically what we're here for today, and this is a super good tool for everybody to use just in general when you're thinking, when is commencement again? Or, I'm looking for general university deadlines, and the academic calendars always seems to be hard for me to find. There's posted most of what shows up on the academic calendar under the section University Dates and Deadlines. So basically all the events that are submitted come into these three categories: all events, stuff that the students, organizations are submitting, university dates and deadlines. I've been using this lately rather than trying to find the actual academic calendar, just because this is easy to get to. So when you're looking for events, they're going to come up right here, and you can always check when you're planning for an event to see what it might be in conflict with, which is something we've needed for a very long time, because we don't like double booking the big stuff. Obviously there's stuff going on at all times, but if you're looking for a particular audience or certain type of event, you don't want to double book it. So when you're ready to go ahead and submit an event, you'll go up here. There's also a link at the very bottom of every page that's submitted an event. So if you're in the middle, you can always go to the top or the bottom. And we are looking at a pretty standard submitting form. There is always a link right here at the top to the calendar support webpage to answer a lot of the questions that might come up when you're submitting. But basically, you can just go to this section and start filling things in. So the event name and description are both required, and there's some best naming practices that we can get to later, but it's pretty straightforward. Most things we do around here are going to be just fine for using in this section. This confused me the first time I was using it. Live is just a designation, a drop down, so that if things are canceled or postponed or sold out on a very rare occasion, that can then be, things can stay in the system, but they don't go away, even if they're, so that people can come and look and be like, oh, this event does exist, it was canceled or it was postponed. So live does not mean live versus virtual. That'll be further down that will make that designation. This is just everything that you put in that is happening will just stay live. If you do have events in the future that get canceled or postponed, obviously you can come in and make that change. The schedule requires a start date, start time, and end time. You can put in repeating events here. There's only the one place to put in description. So if you have a repeating event that's going to be different each time, it's better to put in each individual instance as its own occasion. But if you have a repeating event that's just, student open time or something like that, that is open to the public, you can go ahead and enter that here. So that's the other designation that we want to make sure when we're putting events in the event calendar. This calendar is meant for, events that are to some degree or another open to a larger segment of the population. You're not going to put your weekly staff meetings in here. You're not going to put things that are just for your department only, always in here. And people who organize events kind of know how we put the word out. This is for things that you want to put the word out widely. So if you ever have questions, you can always ask me if something's appropriate for the calendar or not. But this is a public document. This is publicly accessible once you submit this and it gets approved. So don't put anything on here you don't want people to show up to, basically. It's not for somebody's retirement party if somebody's, if it's just internal. It's for things. I think I made the point. So once you've got all your time and date information, and it's always just good to just check it, just double check it before you submit it. I'm the worst at putting the wrong year or the AM instead of PM things. Never hurts to double check it before you click the add above to schedule button. And then that kind of locks in what you've got going on for this. You can still change it after you hit that, but it puts it so that you can see what it's going to look like when you submit it, because there's a format and it'll tell you what it's going to look like on the main calendar. So the location, this is where we're actually looking for hybrid versus in-person versus virtual. And if there's new designations that come up in the future, there will be more choices than that. But for now, those are the three choices we have. And the place designation, it's not limited to campus, but when you put stuff in that looks like campus, sometimes it'll start guessing where you're looking for, especially if this is specific to my my algorithm, but it'll start giving you options of, so if you're using the same space a lot, it'll start popping up. You can put in just North Classroom or just a building for the place and room in a separate spot. You can also put in, as you saw before, like the whole designation and then the room here. Address comes up for a lot of things. 1200 Larimer campus address. You can put things into the system that are not on campus, but just be careful with all the rules and designations we have right now that we're still obeying the event rules where appropriate off of campus. So additional details include a hashtag and our event website space. So the request for the college is that events have, just to make sure that we're sticking with ADA compliance regulations and that we're appropriately using our CLAS web pages, that for most events we can, if you have access especially to your department or group's web page, to develop a page for the event on our CLAS website and use that as your event website with the further details and the other stuff. There was a time when people were posting a lot of PDFs of event flyers as a website, and that is not ADA compliant. The page readers have difficulty if they can read at all a lot of the things that were coming up. So this is a way of making sure we're staying within compliance and then making everything accessible for everybody. Hi, Nikki.
Hi, Tracy. I just have a quick question where you mentioned the ADA compliance, because I was reviewing our website yesterday to make sure that everything we had there was. But I have a question, as far as our event location. And for example, our suite, well, how do you determine ADA compliance in location rather than the web information? We don't have like an automatic door or anything like that to get into our suite. Are we compliant?
That's an excellent question. I believe that all of campus has been reviewed for compliance issues. If you reach out to AHEC, okay, we'll let you know about building issues, because I know, when they were building the big ramps to the library and things like that, everything, as far as I know, every space on campus with the exception of a few rooms in the Tivoli that are up those stairs beyond the elevator.
Okay.
Other than that, I've been told that everything is physically accessible on campus.
Okay, so I don't need to worry about that
If
piece
you
then.
have if you have any concerns, you know, contact AHEC. I mean, and there's a sliding scale, right? Of if you have any concerns, and especially if somebody reaches out and lets you know that they're coming and that they have concerns, it never hurts to have somebody, you know, accompanying somebody if they've got accessibility limitations,
Okay,
opening doors for them, that kind of thing. So
right. Okay,
yeah.
perfect. That answers it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm not as well versed in the physical ADA stuff as I am in the digital.
It's not your realm, I know. Thank you.
But yeah, I know there's always the extra twists that come along. So yeah. And if you run into anything weird, let me know.
Okay,
We'll
thank you.
address it to the dean. Yeah. All right, so we've come to the photo section. So here's the part that I think is fun and is also why it kind of looks so repetitive on the event sometimes. So we have an opportunity to submit images that go along with the events, and they've put right here some really good accessibility type of reminder. You can do a different size, and I'll show you on some of the examples, you know, how it refocuses in if don't have exactly this size of a file. But we don't want to go ahead and just put up a flyer that has the words over an image or over a graphic or anything like that, because those are, once again, hard for readers, hard for people with limited sight. So when you submit, if anything gets rejected, a lot of times it might be something in this realm. And if I'm the one I'm doing reviewing for the college, sometimes things are reviewed by somebody outside the college. But if I'm having an issue with anything, I will let you know via email what the issue is. And that's what all the other reviewers have been doing as well. We haven't had a lot of problems with having to reject stuff, but I'm sure as we move forward and more people use the system, it'll become more of a thing. So here is the only place I think that might get confusing, the filter. So the filters, this is important for how your event is seen, where it's sent to, besides that main screen. So event types were developed without consulting a lot of people in the colleges. So some of these are rather limited. If you have any recommendations for something that's missing here from this designation, you can email them to me, and we can stretch this out. It's basically just used to determine, you know, if people are sorting on the main page by, you know, they're a donor and they only want those kind of events. It's not going to be as much of a limitation as it is a feature for people who are searching for specific types of events. Likewise, the topics and the interest. And these are pretty straightforward. And again, if there's something glaring that's missing, let me know. The filters are not required. So if none of these fit and you don't feel like taking the time to work up a new one, just you can skip these, though they will put you in put you in front of more eyeballs if people are searching for certain things. Target audience, pretty straightforward. This should be adequate. If you're, you know, doing a big event and you need to, and every student is invited, you can just select students. If you're doing something where it's aimed at a particular group of students, there are designations here. This is where we start getting to what's important. The colleges, and so basically what this does, which without being very obvious on the page, is there's going to be hundreds and thousands of people submitting events every day to this tool once we're getting going. And the way that they've designated making that submission process easier is when you select your College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, you are submitting it for approval to me rather than to the big clump. That's all being approved by the events folks. So as soon as you select this, and I'm going on and checking for for events every day. That'll expedite your approval process probably by a couple of days, potentially. And then when you're going into, and you know, these are here, if you're doing something that you think human education and development might be interested in, rather than just clicking it, because that's going to mean that they're going to also be approving your event or not approving it. You might just want to send them an email and let them know about it, and then, you know, see if they'd be interested in being added to your event. Because what happens with this function right here is this is how the widget on our main CLAS webpage decides what's going to get listed on our CLAS webpage. So when you go to, it's not the one I want. Our main CLAS webpage, and you go to About the College, and you go down here, you're going to find the upcoming events of our college. Nifty. It feeds automatically from the system once it's been approved. So what's great about this is it's a nice, easy place for us to find our events. What's not functional is if everybody just starts, you know, if everybody in business and human resource or education and everybody just starts clicking us, because basically every event would be of interest to somebody in our college. We're so broad, we're so all-inclusive that we would end up with every event that's happening on our main page if other people start doing that. So we don't want to do it to other people. And likewise, when we come back to the breakdowns here, very often we're co-sponsoring events, right, with different, you know, we might be co-sponsoring with American Indian Student Services or all of the, you know, student service organizations. They should all be in here if we're co-sponsoring an event with somebody. But otherwise, we really just want to pick who we are and not select. Some people have already started, you know, sort of trying to select everything in here, going and doing, you know, a million of these, thinking that it's then going to show up on everybody's calendar and make their event super successful. And what it's actually doing is just getting their events rejected. So we just want to make sure that if we're selecting a department here, that they're aware of our event, that they're, you know, in support of our event. If they're not a formal sponsor, they're at least going to be okay with us saying that they're involved with our event. You know, because you guys don't want a random student group picking your department and saying, you know, anthropology signed off on this if they're doing something that's not appropriate. And I assure you, if they are doing that on the back end, I will be rejecting them. So that is the basics of filling out the form. And you kind of just got an example of how this can then be built into a widget that can feed on to a web page. So if you have a web page that you're interested in having this event system feed to one of your web pages, you can contact Tim Stalker, and he's going to be able to assist you in then making that a reality. So really quick, the last few minutes before the half hour, in case anybody's got to go, I sent you guys links to all of these pages. It's just best practices type of reminders. And it's a lot of the stuff that I just went over. But it's got that, this is what I didn't cover, sorry. So the event title best practices is, you know, how long things should be, but it won't be rejected if you're beyond 50 characters for a title. Descriptions, you know, it's basically exactly what you would expect it to be. Why should someone attend this event? And it's a good place right now to also emphasize, and people are aware, but it never hurts to emphasize in the event description right now that masks are required on campus. If you're doing any special kind of social distancing protocols, this is another good place to make sure that you're letting people know about that. The images, so the one thing I was kind of surprised about is they don't want people using just any type of logo. Like we were putting in the Hollerback trainings that everybody's been going to for the last few weeks, and we got another one here in half an hour. And I was trying to put the Hollerback logo as part of the image, and they didn't want that. So even for your department logo, it's not the best practice to just put that file up in there. Basically, what happens if you don't select an image, if you leave that unselected, it will generate for you automatically one of, I think there's tons of them. There's over 20, 30 stock images that are being reused of campus. So like this one is a stock image this one's a stock image. So these people didn't submit a specific photo for their event, and it assigns you, this one's a stock image. So you'll see the ones that are stock images pop up. If you see it popping up a lot, you'll know that was a stock image. And you will see, and we are pardon me. I don't know how this one got through. You will see on here a few sessions where people are breaking the rules. I I didn't approve that one, but somebody did, and so eventually they'll relocate it and they'll ask them to take it down. But yeah, but I think, here's a really good example of the Department of Integrative Biology has already submitted for one of their fall seminars the lovely picture of their speaker who's coming in. And I don't think that this picture was specifically cropped down to the exact size before they submitted it. What I think is that they then, put the image in and it got resized by the system, but it looks nice. And I don't think it was the highest resolution image in the world, but it doesn't get any bigger than this in this system. So if you've got something that's a relatively good file size, you're going to be okay. And then this is what it looks like when you've submitted all of your information. This is the back end of what a event looks like. And this is where people who are interested can submit, I'm interested. There is a function for registration, for event registration in the system that we are not encouraging people to use at this point. So Tim would like to emphasize that if you need a registration function for your in-person event, that you're building those out through Drupal on your websites. And that if you're doing it via Zoom, that it is okay to use that Zoom registration that we used for this today. So the other website, I included two other websites in that original email. This is the basic policies and guidelines, a lot of the stuff that I already sent you. One thing I did want to point out is that, if you're rejected, not you, if your event is rejected, sorry, the backend says approve or reject. So that's a very harsh way of putting it. But if your event is not approved, it could be for one of these reasons over here, and that's I would say that the process on the back end is not, not everybody's not looking for every single point of this to be true, but any of this is reasons that you can get called out. And so one thing I would like to stress that was in the email, you need an approved room reservation. Putting something in the system with a specific location on it does not reserve that space for you. This is not tied to the EMS system. It's not tied to any of the other room reservation systems. So that is something we're really hoping everybody hears.
I have a question on that, Tracy. So like on our suite where we have room to do it, we don't need to have a special approval, or will somebody stop it and look at it at that point? Okay.
Nope.
Thanks.
No.
All right. Thank you.
It's more for some of the student, we have a dorm now, we have things like that. And so sometimes the students are going to be more informal with things and want it to be stressed that like you should have a designated space that people are going to know that you're going to be there, things like that. So, and then Nikki mentioned the digital accessibility and inclusive content page that's been built out on our CLAS website. I hope you've all heard about it. There's a lot of great resources here. for making sure that we're keeping everything accessible. We're not just working on digital accessibility to be ADA compliant, we're doing it because it's the right thing to do. And there's audits going on currently of our web pages and things like that. So everything you need to know about how to be digitally compliant is pretty much on this webpage. And Tim and I are accessible, or accessible. We're just accessible. Tim and I are around for answering questions. But yeah, this is for the, creating your event webpage in the Drupal sphere. There's a lot of good information here. So I just wanted to make sure you guys know about it. And then what else is there to say? So once you're signed up and you have access to the system, you'll have a dashboard where you'll be able to see what is, did I accidentally log myself out? Okay, so here's my dashboard. And if somebody was to approve, I'm going to have a little more stuff going on than you guys are. But you'll be able to see the events that you're organizing and hear, know about where they're at. And this is really self-explanatory. There's not a lot of complications back here. But if you've submitted an event and you're wondering what's going on with it, it'll show up on your dashboard when you log in. This is where it'll take you to. So I've yammered on for quite long enough. What questions can I answer for everybody?
Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Alicia.
I have a few questions, some of which may be very specific to one specific event.
That will happen.
My first question, actually, which is not necessarily specific to that event, is in that page where you're putting in the location of an event and it says like in-person, hybrid, virtual. If it's hybrid, is there also a place to put like a Zoom link or a Zoom registration link?
Excellent question. So yeah, so here we're at the location, and when you select virtual, it'll give you it's a logical what's it called? All the location stuff changes based on what you choose, what you select. So if you select virtual or hybrid, it'll change from being the room and the address and the place to being dial-in instructions, stream URL, stream embed code, all the stuff that Zoom gives you when you create that Zoom link.
Okay, great.
Yes.